Welcome back to Palestine Bookshelf. I'm Stephen Heiner, and today we're going to be discussing I Saw Ramallah by Mourid al Barghouti. I've done a review for this before on my main Stephen Heiner channel. It's a bit of a longer one, and I'm happy with that. I'll put a link in the description as well as a card. Today, I'm just going to read a few excerpts from the final two chapters to give you some sense of al Barghouti's writing as well as his experiences. This is my final night in Ramallah. I put in the application for a reunion permit for Tamim and felt that this step in itself was an achievement. The day passed crowded with guests, family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues. The conversation flowed, and I tried to be the one who listened, who did not speak. Later, I took the manuscript of The Logic of Beings and went to bed. This was a book of poetry he was working on. In the room, the silence was complete, as though it were a circle drawn in a book. For a while now, I have preferred listening. The Logic of Beings is built on the idea that creatures, inanimate, plant, animal, or human, speak. My role is to listen to what they say. In my first volume of poems, I proposed to humanity nothing less than the deluge and new genesis. I was in my 20s, a suitable age to be certain of your wisdom. I wrote poetry at university and then in Kuwait, where Kali Atta made me go when I met him in Egypt in '67. I was looking for ways to avoid staying there. I wanted to carry on working with poetry and with literature. I published in Al-Adab, Mawaqif, and Al-Khatib magazines. To Radwa, this is his wife, to Radwa goes the credit for our decision to leave Kuwait permanently and return to Cairo. We got married in 1970, then after less than a year we left Kuwait. We went to Beirut, planning to stay there for a few days before taking the boat to Alexandria. We stayed at the Al-Hamra Hotel. From the cover of a volume of poetry, I took the telephone number of Dar al-Awda publishing house. Hello, Mr. Ahmad Saeed Muhammadiyah? Yes. My name is Mourid al Barghouti and... Welcome, poet! Are you calling from Beirut? Radwa was with me in the room. I put my hand over the mouthpiece and said to her, He says welcome, poet. I thought I needed a long and clever introduction to ask for an appointment and persuade him to publish my first collection in the well-known publishing house he owned and ran. I thought, living in Kuwait, that nobody in Beirut, the capital of Arab publishing, had heard of me. I said, I am in the Al-Hamra Hotel. Come and have a cup of coffee. You must have a manuscript. Bring it with you. Within minutes, he had agreed to publish it, and it came out in January 1972. I had given a copy of the manuscript to Mona al-Suudi to design a cover. She designed it, but she put the name Munif al Barghouti instead of Mourid al Barghouti. The publisher did not, of course, bother to redo the cover, and the collection appeared with Munif's name hidden under a rectangle of silver ink and mine written on top of it. If you look closely, you can still see the two names mixed together. For both him and me, this mixing symbolized something special, which made it easier to bear the ugliness of the cover. So this is some years later in Egypt. At noon on Saturday, July the 8th, 1972, my birthday, I was sitting in Broadcasting House in Maspero in Cairo, having just recorded a literary interview, when I saw Shafi Shalabi running down the stairs to tell me that Hassan Kanafani had been murdered in Beirut. I went with Sulaiman Fayyad to Yusuf Idris at his Al-Ahram newspaper office. We said we wanted to hold a symbolic funeral for Hassan Kanafani in Cairo at the same time as his funeral in Beirut. We met in the afternoon at Café Riche, Yusuf Idris, Naguib Surur, Abed Al-Musin Taha Badr, Yahya Al-Taher Abdallah, Sulaiman Fayyad, Saeed Al-Kafrawi, Ibrahim Mansour, Khali Sukri, Radwa, and other writers whom I do not remember. Hassan's murder was a quarter of a century ago now. That day we were around 50 people. Yahya Al-Taher Abdallah wrote out the placards in his beautiful calligraphy. We walked silently in the form of a funeral from Café Riche in Sulaiman Pasha Street to the Journalist Syndicate in Abd al-Khaliq Sarwat Street, and there the security forces were waiting for us. They took Yusuf Idris inside, and we waited for him in the syndicate's garden. The officer asked Yusuf Idris one specific question. Did you have Palestinians with you in that march? Yusuf said, I will give you the names of all 50 people. Write them down. Yusuf Idris, Yusuf Idris, Yusuf Idris, Yusuf Idris. Here the officer stopped him, ended the meeting, and left. Yusuf joined us in the garden, told us what had happened, and we split up. I want to note this is 1972, so we don't have a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel yet, and here the Egyptians are monitoring the Palestinians. So I just want to point out for anyone who thinks that the Arab nations have been wonderful and hospitable to the Palestinians, it's really a toss-up. And here's an example of the Palestinians being surveilled, or at least an attempted surveillance of them. And if you're interested in Hassan Kanafani, I will put a link to his playlist as a card and in the description. We're still beginning to scratch the surface of his work, but we've done a few reviews on this channel. So if you'd like to know more about him, a giant of Palestinian literature, you can follow that. While I'm talking, I might as well also let you know if you're enjoying what you are hearing, please consider hitting like, subscribe, sharing this. There's also this new hype feature. If you want to give us some hype points, get this channel out to more people who would like to be educated about what's been actually happening in Palestine. Despite the sad occasion, we could only laugh at one of the placards that Yahya had insisted on writing. It said, "They shoot horses, don't they?" When we went home and told Latifa al-Zayat what we had done and about that particular placard, she unleashed her wide smile and said, "People must have had a good time laughing at you in the street. Why don't you write something they can understand?" When I told her what Yusuf Idris had done, she said, "That's Yusuf. He strikes a heroic posture, then stays confused and nervous and afraid until he does its opposite. You were lucky." What anniversary today, Naji? And what birthday after today, Hassan? What should we remember and what should we forget? This is not a personal matter that concerns me alone. Our catastrophes and our pains are repeated and proliferate day after day. An event descends upon its opposite and destroys in us all anniversaries. Our calendars are broken, overlaid with pain, with bitter jokes and the smell of extinction. There are numbers now that can never again be neutral. They will always mean one thing. Since the defeat of June 1967, it is not possible for me to see the number 67 without it being tied to that defeat. I see it in part of a telephone number, on the door of a hotel room, on the license plate of a car, in any street in the world, on a cinema or theater ticket, on a page in a book, in the address of an office or a house, at the front of a train, or a flight number on an electronic board in any airport in the world. A number frozen in its frame. Not a number at all, but a statue of a number, in wax, in granite, in lead, in indelible chalk on a blackboard in a black hall. It is not that I consider it a bad omen, just that I note it, that I register it. It moves from the unconsciousness to the conscious for a transient moment, then dives again like a dolphin that appears and disappears in the motions of the ocean. I do not draw any conclusions from this, do not tremble or become sad or tense. I just note it with all my five senses, as though it were a face that I know, a face that is part of my life and not part of it, but is always there, as we know that the dolphins are there in the water even though we do not see them. Is that June defeat a particular psychological problem for me? For my generation? For contemporary Arabs? Other events took place after it. Other disappointments and setbacks no less dangerous. Wars raged, massacres were committed, political and intellectual discourses were altered, but 67 remains different. We are still paying its bills until this day. There is nothing that happened in our contemporary history that does not bear relationship to 67. Since 1967, the last move in the Arab chess game has been a losing move, a move backward, negating everything that came before it, however positive those opening moves were. After the Battle of Al-Karama, where the Palestinians and the Jordanians fought together against the enemy, we turned in Black September against ourselves. After the War of 1973 and the crossing of the Suez Canal, we went to Camp David. After our opposition to Camp David, we Arabized it and generalized it and accepted what was even less successful, even less useful, and more scandalous. After the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, the PLO turned from heroic resistance to fighting within itself and moderation and adaptability in face of the conditions set by the enemy. After the popular intifada on the land of Palestine, we went to Oslo. We are always adapting to the conditions of the enemy. Since 67, we have been adapting. And here is Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, calming America's fears for the current agreement by saying that the Arabs will in the end adapt to his harshness because they always adapt to whatever they have to. Do I have a problem with 67? Yes, I have a problem. The defeat of June is not over. On the second day of the war, and with the national songs and anthems growing louder and louder on the radio, university students poured into the center set up to process volunteers for the front. I stood in the line of volunteers and registered my name. They gave me a small green card with my name written on it and underneath in one sentence, to be called to serve on June 12, 1967. And on June 9, I sat in front of the television in my flat in Zamalek watching Gamal Abed al-Nasser speak as the whole nation hung on his lips that night, trying to understand something of what had happened, was still happening at the front. The owner of the flat, a blonde and extremely large woman whom I called Madame Sosostris, sat next to me, and we heard him say, "We have suffered a setback." Then he declared that he would step down completely and finally, relinquishing all his official posts. I jumped out of my seat to the door to the street and found myself one of millions of people who jumped at that same moment into the darkness of the streets and the darkness of the future. And this is from the final chapter and the final words of the text. Lying on my back in bed, my locked fingers cradling my head, I do not know what keeps my eyes open, gazing toward the ceiling. The ceiling is no longer there in this complete darkness, but sleep has nothing to do with me. It was invented for others. This is my final night in Ramallah, my final night in this small room, under a window that looks out on countless questions, looks out also on a settlement. As though by crossing that small wooden bridge I managed to stand in front of my days. I made my days stand in front of me. I touched particular details for no reason and neglected others, also for no reason. I chattered an entire lifetime to myself while my guests thought I was silent. I crossed the forbidden bridge, and suddenly I bent to collect my scattered fragments as I would collect the flaps of my coat together on an icy day, or as a pupil would collect his papers scattered by the wind of the fields as he comes back from far away. On the pillow I collected the days and nights of laughter, of anger, of tears, of foolishness, and of marble monuments for which a single lifetime cannot suffice to visit them all with an offering of silence and respect. I prepare my small bag, ready to return to the bridge, to Amman, then Cairo, and then to Morocco to read poetry at a festival in Rabat. I will spend less than a week in Rabat, then return to Cairo, and then with Radwa and Tamim to spend the summer with my mother and Allah in Amman. In Amman I will wait for Tamim's permit. I will return here with him. He will see it. He will see me in it, and we shall ask all the questions after that. Tonight, with everyone in the house asleep and morning about to break, I ask a question that the days have never answered. What deprives the spirit of its colors? What is it other than the bullets of the invaders that have hit the body? All right, I saw Ramallah, Mourid al Barghouti. Sadly, he's no longer with us. I think he passed away in 2007. But he left us plenty of work. So if you'd like to read Palestinian literature, read Palestinian poetry, go beyond simply military details and battles and peace negotiations, so-called peace negotiations, and you want to understand who the Palestinian people are in another way, literature is a great way to do that. So I recommend this text, one of my favorite texts of memoir on Palestine Bookshelf. There's a link to buy the book in the description. That's one of the ways you can support this channel. As I've said already, one of the free ways that you can support this channel, like, subscribe, hype, share this with people who might be interested and who can share that among their own networks. If you'd like to thank me for this presentation, there's a link to PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee below. If you'd like to thank me on an ongoing basis, there's links to YouTube membership and Patreon, as well as if you're watching this on Substack, there's a paid way to support me on Substack. And in all of these circumstances, you will get early access to reviews like this one, as well as have the chance to ask me questions for monthly Q&As that I like to do. Also a reminder that profits from this venture, whenever we get there, are going to go to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. This is a medical charity that helps Palestinian children get medical care that they would not otherwise get. You can find out more about them at pcrf.net, whether you support them directly through their website, which I encourage, or indirectly by helping us get the word out and become monetized eventually. Then I think you will find they're a very worthy cause and worth supporting. Until next time, enjoy your reading.